Hello. I'm just making sure everything's put together. I'm also getting used to the new headphones. Thank you, Death Noah. They got here quite quickly. And then I have. Hey, look at that distinguished gentleman frog. I'm so glad. I realized I should make a frog for lurking, so that guy will be coming up next for sure. Hi, Petster, with the little fluffy ears on that. I said last night, and I do mean it, that I will be doing cryptids, and so tonight I'm doing random creepypasta stories. So, or if you would prefer, Wikipedia articles of the different cryptids, because I was trying to find a good spot, kind of like my fairy tale website. I thought I had one, but it is riddled with ads and will get very difficult for me to keep up with everything. So I'm trying to find a website or a place where I can see all of the stories kind of in one place, and where I actually have info on the various different stuff as opposed to just one story. That's very long. But I will run an ad quickly, and then we'll get started on the first story, which was a random thing, but hopefully it's good. Alright. Making sure it's all up. We're getting spookier. This is going to be a different kind of stream today, so that's going to be interesting. And I kind of like that I'm choosing spooky things for Valentine's Day instead of mushy things. Oh, yes, I didn't know what I was doing. I need to remove one. I'm new to Throne Scratch Fury, and I don't know how things work. So I need to fix that. I just need one. It's not, maybe I don't even need one, but I just took a couple of suggestions and put them on there. I'm not picky. I'm still figuring my stuff out. But Fetster, you're glad you're finally home tonight. Where were you before? If I may bug you about that. Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, I'm glad you're back home after that. You can be done with in-person nonsense. 3? Oh wow, okay. That's unfun. Oh, I will look at that after Scratch Fury. So, you suggested something, and a tire blew out. I'm so sorry for your rough day, Fetster. I'm glad you can just flop and be done with that. Aw. Well, you couldn't get it off? I hope you've gotten it off at this point, that it's all sorted now. But, okay. Oh, I hope things are going to go easier now for you. Oh yes, yeah. I did learn of the crowdfunding options, and I'll be changing that soon. I just want to make sure it's the very specific things that I want, so that people don't, like, if I put the crowdfunding on 2 mic arms and people paid in for 2 different mic arms, that would be unhelpful. Oh, that's tough. I hope you got help then, or something sorted all that out. But yeah, I'll make the next frog, and I will update the throne. Oh, that's good. I'm glad somebody helped you out then, Fetster. And now we can all ignore the rest of how our days have maybe or maybe not gone poorly. And I'm going to be getting ready for the next story. It's going to be a spooky night, as opposed to the typical. I mean, they're not spooky, some of those fairy tales, but anyway, it'll be less wholesome. Not that they're exactly wholesome. They'll gotta wave my arm. Okay, then I will look into it. I will pick that out. And because Scratch Fury said something only goes with certain desk setups, I will. Okay, good. Yeah, I will look at that. Because I did include a desk, because mine is also old and hand me down, and it's just like the chair, and its legs are bowing, but it's been bowing for a long time. And I don't know what low profile variant means. That's what I mean by I'll look into it. I'll do my studying and get back to you. But I'll make sure that things all like coordinate together properly. Hinges across. Oh. Okay, so I think I can make that work. There's a bookshelf next to me, so that is the vertical that we need, right? I'll make sure I've got what we need. It'll be alright. Ah, yeah, okay. Well, I'll make sure I have the right things, and I will turn on the crowdfunding options, and I'll look at other things. And I was amazed that there was a bunch of food options on there, like snacks and stuff, and I might put some of those up just for giggles. But yeah. I'm so new and unaccustomed to this kind of stuff that I feel weird to be putting anything, but Violet Spellcraft, she told me do it, put it up early, and people will be there. And Death Noah, the little shit, got 3 things at once. I'm very excited to get the chair so that my back doesn't hurt anymore. Well, assumedly. And then, dab. Yeah, you get a dab. You were waiting. I thought that your message was like, nothing happened. I was like, what? What nothing happened? What do you mean? It's because you thought that there would be like an alert. But I have fixed that, because as I said, I talked to Violet about it, and she was like, oh, no, this is what you do. And there you go. Yeah, you seem to be. And I am astonished and confused, but grateful. I love the generosity you guys give in your messages, and the way you'll like teach me some of this stuff and be chatty and make sure I don't feel weird and unsure of what I'm doing. But then the financially generous is a whole other thing, and that's wonderfully crazy too. But you don't have to be generous in that way. You definitely don't. Oh, those little, Yeah, I think someone sent one of those to Vi too, those little face massagey globe thingies. Yeah. It's so nice of people. They're so well, I am seeing more and more why Violet insisted that this is a very supportive and helpful community. So I'm very glad I'm here and I'm meeting you guys and getting all the supports of various ways from you. All right. We've done our gabbing, and I'm sure people will be annoyed that I still have this under ASMR when I'm doing all this just chatting. I wonder when I should change that, like, naming. I don't know. Forget words. I will read the first one. I had just hit random story on Creepypasta Stories, and it gave me something published July 27th, 2022. Wait, what? What Death Noah again? Don't tell me I missed something. What happened? No. That was Death Noah that did the globes? Nothing? No, don't be a little shit this time. I take 1 second to look over at the creepypasta stories that I'm supposed to frickin' read, and you do a thing and I miss it. So I don't even see if my frickin' thing worked that I spent so long figuring out. But okay. I have to put... No, you... You're insane. You damn well better have the money to be doing this and not put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, okay? Don't you dare do dumb things like do that, because, like, I'm concerned. Okay, where do I even find the activity here? I don't know. I'm startled. What do I do? Okay. Activity. I found it. All I have is when I ran ads. Oh no, that's not it. I don't know. I have to oh. Now things are being weird. Okay. I found my way back. I will go to the right. It might be filtered though. Oh. Okay. I have a feeling. You're referring to Throne, so I'll go and open that up again. Where is that tab? I had that tab open. I don't know where it went. You are referring to it. Okay, goddammit. Okay. Well, can you tell me if the alert worked? The alert went on the screen, right? That happened? Mother... You got the full frickin' desk, you little shit. Thank you. Wait, I do need to make sure that it was Death Noah, but I have an assumption. Yep, yeah, it's Death Noah. Start the audio cue. Aha! See, I can't hear my my screen because it, with the mic and everything, I'm nervous about what noises will happen. Not more. Death Noah, what are you doing? Okay. I'm losing my mind. This is nuts. Hello, Black Silence, you're lurking. I'm getting screams of joy and startle and just a little bit like, why is it all happening at once? Hey, root beer, Ignis Marvel. You talking about root beer again, eh? Okay. Back to the Pet Store. I'm glad there was an audio cue that worked. I'm glad that happened. Okay. I think this is the right cue. I'm trying to remember to hit my little emote buttons slowly. 1,000. What are those? Bits or something? What is this? I'm learning all the things. Cheer! 1,000 cheers? Woohoo! I don't know what any of this means. Where's the meme of you? Oh, I put on the wrong thing, but it was happy tears. This works close enough. The sign of that can't bother me because I can't read. Is how I feel with some of this. I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. Breathe, breathe, Raven. Thank you, Ghosty. They're being extra nice to me right now. That's what they're doing. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna have a new desk, and it's gonna not be... Oh! So Death Noah's fully being a little money shit. You little shit. Thank you, Death Noah. I feel like I have to now do a whole little, like, special dance or something. Like, I have to do a big thank you and I don't know what to do. What do you request, Your Majesty, with all of the monies? Would you like your own special frog? I don't know how to make that. Someone have their own. Would you like? I don't know. Do you have a very specific story in mind? I don't know. Sort of. Oh, okay. Internet monies be weird, probably, in all kinds of ways. Okay. Okay, you're good. Alright. Well, don't tell me that's gone now. Yes, okay, it was just in another spot. I have a story to read after I have settled myself and you guys are all done being show-offs. But thank you. I was giggling to myself that I got the headphones that are red and black for Valentine's Day because they're red. And then now we're reading Creepypasta, which is red and black. And it feels like a visual theme. It's not my Emerald Lake Obsidian Reads theme visually, but it's a theme for the day. Wait, what do I have? I have had a few. I have more frogs. I can do more frogs. The best I have is these. The wow and the ah and the bounce. Double bounce. You guys. Ooh. Oh, is that how that works? Okay, I'll make a Death Noah raining money frog, but I'll hide the Death Noah name so then we can just have a raining money frog for if anyone sends any money things, then it can be like the raining money frog. How long have I been streaming? Oh, when was the first actually working stream? It was February 7th when I started. No, not February 7th. It was February 1st, the first one I got. You want to make some frog emotes? Go for it. I fiddled around for a while. Like I said that I got the first set on Canva and then messed with their things, their colorings and such. And then, thank you, yes, I'm very happy with them. I messed with the stuff there. And then yesterday, I spent a bunch of time, or I guess early this morning, technically. Thank you, Ghosty. I spent a bunch of time tracing it because I'm not that adept in Photoshop and stuff, but I have a friend who lets me use their account, and so I did, and I slowly recreated the frog in layers, and that is how we have the bouncing frog, the ah frog, the ah frog. I did the charmed frog. All these ones are the ones that I did myself recently. Do Murder and Gentleman. I went back on Canva to get the mustache, monocle, and hat for the gentleman frog. Yeah, it's these. All of them is the new. Thank you, Cage Nightwind. I think I am doing thus far. But thank you. Yes, I made him for you, Death Noah. I made that murder frog for you. I still like Psyduck. I still want to see Psyduck in here, but I thought that the yes, doing is better than not doing. I thought that a little murder frog would be good for you. Yeah, look at that. See, it's so much higher quality. But I like my little cutesy art that's copying somebody else. It's not so bad. Okay. If you have other frog ideas, I'll definitely fiddle around. Yes. Well, I'm trying to think all of the moments in our fairy tales, basically. Like when, oh, that's a left turn, I don't like that. Like the vomit frog, that's for when all of the incest happens. And then I have the charming prince, because so many times it's like somebody gets stars in their eyes and it's just wow, 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 wow. And it's usually the prince who's like, oh my gosh, a gorgeous lady. I have no idea what she is in any way, shape, or form, but she pretty. So I'll be obsessed with her now. And we'll get married based on looks alone. So that's the little charming frog. And then whenever they put on a disguise or something, gentleman frog. Also, because we mentioned mustache and such at the next one. Thank you, Devoid, for thanking Death Noah. Everybody thanked Death Noah. Death Noah did the most. I think you were the reason for most of my stuff. No, that's good. That's good. To be fair, a Zeus frog would just be dick in everything, not just your relations, but everybody, wouldn't it? I'll make some NSFW frogs too eventually, I'm sure, but I think we'll start with the cute ones. But I'm definitely gonna do a lurking frog, where I think basically it'll be like a little lily pad that he peeks his head out over and then dips back down. And so the image will be a slow rise and slow low. So then it'll be fun. I think it would be cool. And then any more weird characters we'll throw in. Yes, okay. Lurk away. I have had a good day so far, yes. I hope everyone else is having a pretty good day. And I like doing this and having a less love involved, because we're going spooky instead. One of my favorite posts that's gone around for a little while has been, let's not forget the real meaning of February 14th. The day the natives killed James Cook in Hawaii. Because the Hawaiians, they had enough of that shithead. That's the day they got rid of him, and I love it. It's a murder day too, so let's celebrate that. And for all the right reasons, murder day, a very good reason. So let's celebrate in that way. Let's do spooky, let's do creepypasta. Everyone that's lurking, lurk away. We love a lurker. Anyone that wants to chat. Obviously I'm a very big chatter. I've just wasted a bunch of time off the top very happily time well wasted chatting with everyone. And I will do more of it between stories for sure, and possibly even during stories, interrupting myself. That's usually how it goes. I hope your Wi-Fi is not too wacky. So, oh, my avatar was just very wacky. So that you can still listen. But I always upload my videos on YouTube so that you will have access to them afterwards if you so choose. And I was a little late in uploading the last few, but they're all up now. So everything's uploaded, and I make sure to include which stories we read in the description so that you're like, wait, what was the thing I was paying attention to? And I try to have them titles up on screen so that we remember as well. Thank you, Ghosty. I appreciate it. I think I broke my sub goals thanks to Death Noah, but I've made a recent loftier follow goal. 100 followers is the next goal. So I appreciate you helping out for that. Alright, we're going to be, where's this? We're going to be reading Intervention on Creepypasta. It was just the random story that came up. And I will say, looking a little bit at the first few words that have popped out, this is going to be interesting. Prep your interesting frogs, because you may have some emotions and laughs. I don't know what's going on here. Alright. It says it's an estimated 21 minutes. They underestimate my ability to take too long. I think it's actually a pretty lengthened story, but to be fair, this isn't the thick paragraphs that the other website usually has. And I am slow and interrupt myself, so this will take a while, I'm sure. We may need a break partway through. But here we go. Intervention, written by Stephanie Scissom, with edits and the thumbnail by Craig Groshek. So there you go. And it doesn't have an audio option, so this is the only way to hear it audio, I guess. Okay. Bo woke to something dragging across his face. It took him a moment to realize where he was. Duke, cut it out, he mumbled, trying to shield himself from his dog's slurpy affection. His muscles screamed in protest. Pee on him, Duke, his mama groused. Maybe he'll get out of my way then. Bo rolled onto his side, allowing her room to climb the front steps he was sprawled across. I'd ask, she said, but I don't want to know. So I guess he's on the stairs. Was in the way of Mama. Dog woke him up, and he is rolling off to the side. I was confused by that sentence, because I don't know where we are yet. Bo pulled off the blanket she'd covered him with. No shirt, no shoes. His pants were muddy and wet, his knuckles bruised and bloody. Had he been in a fight? No. Last night's adventures came back to him. Handfishing catfish in the murky waters near Toledo Bend. Yeah, he'd rather not tell Mama about that. He could hear her now. What kind of damn fool dives underwater at night to stick their bare hands in a nest? Boy, haven't I taught you anything? In Louisiana. Oh, I should have been putting on an accent, I guess. No. We'll stay in this voice. Okay. In Louisiana, catfish weren't the only things that might bite, but enough tequila and he'd been down. He squinted at his muddy truck and wondered how he'd gotten home. Bo dug in his pocket. The baggie was still in there, inside another Ziploc containing his wallet and phone. He used his debit card to chop a line of cocaine right on the porch. Woohoo! I don't have a cocaine frog yet. But That would have been what I expected at that. He could tell by the sun's position that he was late. Cat would probably fire him from this time. Bo pushed himself up and went inside to shower and dress. Mama met him at the door as he jerked on his boots. Boy, you're gonna kill yourself if you don't slow down. I'm too old to get a visit from the sheriff telling me you're dead. Bo stooped to kiss her wrinkled cheek. What? I'm fine, Mama. She grabbed his arm, her face grim. I'll pray for you. Bo froze, then winked before letting the screen door bang shut behind him. That was new. In his whole life, he'd never heard her mention prayer. In fact, people in the parish had always called her a witch. Ever since he could remember, she'd done tarot readings and sold little gree bags of love spells to the local housewives for extra cash. He guessed he was going to have to let up on her a little. Kat was pacing outside by the time he pulled up to the office. She gave him a scathing look, but Travis saved him by yelling, Hey, you coming? Bo grinned and jogged onto the dock. She'd get him later, but first there was money to be made. Kat would never interfere with that. His excitement dwindled when he surveyed the group waiting for their swamp tour. He hated fairs like this one. 2 girls in their early 20s, ogling him with blatant interest, and 3 preppy guys about the same age. Statistically, the worst tippers ever. But it was better than hanging back and listening to Kat rant, so he smiled and started his spiel while Travis handed out Life Vest. Bo twisted his still damp long hair and stuck it under his cap. The August sun beat down unmercifully as he told them about the bayou and how Katrina had impacted the area. Nobody was paying attention. The guys looked bored, searched the water for gators. The blonde girl glanced at the red-headed girl, then gave him a seductive smile. They were attractive, but with every smile they shot him, he felt his revenue dwindling. The guy in the Gucci sandals didn't look happy at all. Oh, okay, that's why the revenue. Bo needed something to happen. Then he saw it. He tapped Travis on the shoulder and pointed at the thick black snake swimming on top of the water, its triangular head raised. Angle around, he said. Please don't, Travis said, and Bo gave him an impatient wave. Hurry, before it gets away. Bo reached down and grabbed the moccasin behind his head, barely avoiding its bite. The girl screamed when he pulled it into the boat. Its thick, dark body writhed desperately. Hey, Dimda. Go ahead and lurk. We're doing spooky stuff. A random creepypasta story. We're in a boat on the bayou. And we've got a dark snake, a moccasin, water moccasin. This is a water moccasin, also called a cottonmouth. A mature one is usually 2 to 4 feet, so this guy's been around a while. They're North America's only venomous water snake. You can't see because I have my thumb here, but they have a distinctive, skinny neck and bulky head. Thanks for all the love. That's not a water moccasin, Gucci Sandals said to his buddy. They're olive-banded. Bo bristled. The older they get, the darker. He stuck the snake's head a little too close to Gucci Sandals' face, making him withdraw. See the heat pit behind its nostrils? That's how it senses prey. Also cat-like pupils, and of course the white lining of its mouth, where it gets its name, single scales on the bottom, not double, like a non-venomous snake. Literally, they said Louisiana. I was like, should I be putting on an accent? I can do that. But we won't. I think it's a cottonmouth, Gucci's buddy said, because Google told him so. And I mean, to be fair, it's a water moccasin, also called a cottonmouth. Bo asked the girls if they had a pen. When the blonde handed him one, he used it to milk some yellow venom from the snake's fangs. He definitely had their attention now. Bo talked a bit longer about the snake. Yeah, exactly. Just our Gucci's there. Anyway, okay. Bo talked a bit longer about the snake, then managed to release it without getting bitten. Travis gave an audible sigh of relief, and the redhead clapped. They approached one of his favorite pockets in the swamp. Bo surveyed the area, pulled off his shoes, and looked at Travis. Cooler loaded? Bo, don't, Travis said, but he nodded. For some reason, Bo knew this part didn't scare him as badly as the snake stunt had. He removed his shirt and saw the blonde nudge the redhead as he lobbed it at Travis. Bo knew he was good looking. It was perhaps his one saving grace. His looks and recklessness had gotten him things someone of his status would otherwise have had a hard time acquiring, like Wren, although she was probably still not speaking to him. Ooh, who's Wren? Okay. She'd come around. She always did. That's some scar, the blonde said, tracing a long mark on his abdomen with her fingertip. How did you get that? He winked. Jealous husband. Oh my god, you little shit. Okay. He was losing the guys again, but he was about to make them offer up some big tips. Bo reached into the cooler and stuffed 2 handfuls of raw chicken into the cargo pocket of his shorts. Then he sat on the edge of the boat, checked his surroundings again, and jumped in. This time, even the guys gasped. He stood in neck-deep water, pulled out a piece of chicken, and waited. Thanks for the laughs there. This is going to be something. You should know, when someone's called Bo, they usually do have that kind of energy. Anyway, okay. To your right, Travis said, female alligators tended to hang in the same area while males roamed a bit. Bo knew this one, but no need for the group to know that. The 7-foot-long female waddled off the bank and dipped into the water. The boat erupted in hushed conversation as she swam toward him. Get back in, one of the girls pleaded. Bo ignored her, focusing on the alligator swimming toward him. He trusted that Travis was scanning, watching for others. The alligator swam right up to him, bumping him with her nose. He held the piece of chicken above his head, and she opened her jaws wide like a dog waiting on a treat. Keeping one hand under her throat, he dropped the piece of meat in her mouth. She closed her jaws and lay her head on top of his for a moment, like she was snuggling. Aw, cuddly little gator. Incoming, Travis said. Dead ahead. This one was already in the water and might present a problem. It looked bigger and was probably male. It approached him passively enough, but its sheer size made him nervous. He fed both of them calmly until his pockets were empty. Okay, he said, time to get back in. Travis will give you some marshmallows. Kindly toss them to the area to my left. The gators think they're turtle eggs. They pelted the water with soft white blobs, and the gators slowly circled toward them. The male's tail smacked Bo as he turned. Bo gave them a moment, then turned to let Travis and Gucci haul him back into the boat. Dude, that was amazing, one of the guys said as Bo toweled off with his shirt. Can I post this on social media, or... It's fine, Travis said. Thankfully, neither feeding alligators nor stupidity is illegal in Louisiana. Yeah, they'd be shit out of luck if those things were illegal. They all laughed, and Bo knew that even if they didn't see anything else on this tour, he was still going to get paid. Everyone was animated now, talking over each other, comparing photos. A positive review, including our names, would be most appreciated, he said, and 3 of them started typing on their phones. The rest of the tour was relaxed, pleasant. Travis showed them the video of Bo winning the last Gator Wrestling Championship. Dude, what's something crazy y'all do here besides swimming with gators? Gucci asked. Are you talking like airport races or noodling? I don't know, just something cool we can talk about when we go home, something different. Bo grinned. I know a thing, but the buy-in is $500 each. Kat sat in the swing in front of the office, watching them return. Bo gave her a little salute as he tied off the boat and helped his passengers disembark. They wanted photos with the guides, so he motioned Kat over to take them. "Remember," Bo whispered as she approached, "don't mention the game in front of the boss. You'll get us canned." The girls slid in on either side of him in the pick. They gushed to Kat about the tour, while she gave them a resigned smile. "Thanks, guys," Bo said. "Come and see us again." In about 8 hours, he thought, after closing time. Kat waited until they left to say, "You have another group coming in 20 minutes, so I'll keep this short. I want you here at 9 a.m. tomorrow, just like everybody else, or you're fired." How about I come in at 11 and work a couple hours late? The sun doesn't set until nearly 8 now. Bobby burst out of the office and came running down the steps. "Mom," she said, handing Kat a slip of paper. "We have a big group coming in tomorrow at noon. They're pretty sure they'll have to split into 2 or 3 smaller groups, but they all want Bo and Travis and said they'll wait. Tell them we have other guides here and it'll be more expedient. They said if they can't have them, they'll go to Bayou Boys Tours. I'm supposed to call back." Checkmate. Kat sighed. "Tell them to come on. We'll work with them." Bo grinned at her and said, "See you at 11. Of course, each tour was different, and he didn't get in the water again, but each group was different as well, and Bo had no trouble impressing their other guests. Kat was still mad, but most of her 5-star reviews on social media listed his name as the guide. She wouldn't say much unless he missed a booking. Their tip bucket total for the day was over half what they'd each make in wages for the week. Bo always split it down the middle, no shortchanging the guy who watched your back. He had a couple of phone numbers in the mix, slipped to him by the blonde from the first run and a school teacher from Mississippi on the second. He kept them both. "How could you be so stupid?" Joe, another guide, asked. "To be fair, he's probably not the best person to ask," Travis said. "Rent is so hot," Joe said. "What I wouldn't give." A warning look from Bo cut him off. Bo waited until they both walked away to check his phone. Ren still hadn't texted. She'd left him on red 2 days ago, after Inez told her about that girl from the bar. Well, he wasn't going to beg. She knew where to find him. Okay, so Bo's a dick. Bo went to get something to eat, giving Kat time to close up and clear out. Then he headed back to the office. He changed clothes beside his truck, then loaded materials for the game onto one of the airboats. He'd copied most of the keys by now, without Kat's knowledge. Everything was ready by the time Travis and the others arrived. Gucci, also known as Brett, had brought friends. In addition to the 5 from the day trip, there were 4 new faces. Excellent. Once Bo won, it would be a hefty little payday. He made it clear that everyone who rode in the boat kicked in their entry fee, whether they chickened out or not. Then, Bo had pushed his luck and asked for an additional $200 for supplies and gas. Brett had handed it to him so readily that he wished he'd asked for more. Travis took them deep into the swamp. Bo could guess by the way the girls huddled together that they wouldn't venture far from the boat, and he had his doubts about a couple of the guys. Easy money. He and Travis had run this one a few times. It was usually over pretty quickly, and with minimal injury, but it was a rush even to him. They instructed everyone to stay on board until they hung a few lanterns and set the squares in place. Bo shone a light around, looking for any unexpected gators or snakes while Travis collected the money. Bo added to the stack and motioned everyone off the boat. They all looked intimidated, but a few of the guys were posturing, cracking jokes. Travis would not be playing. He'd be running the camera for those assholes to have a video to show to their friends back home. "This is how we play boar poker," Bo said, gesturing to a wooden spool set in the middle of a clearing. You see the 2x2 squares of plywood circling the spool. Pick one and stand on it. If you abandon or are dislodged from your square, you're out. The only exception is that you can jump. But even then, at least 1 foot has to come back down on the square. Understand? They all nodded. He took the barrel from atop the spool. This corn, sweetened by strawberry syrup, they love this stuff, and they will go straight through you to get it. Bo walked around the spool, shaking the coated corn around its base. Pick your squares. Hello, Mad Max. We're doing good. I'm not seeing where the cryptids pop in on this, but it's still a spooky little story here. We're in the bayou and there's gators and we're asking for a fight. Also a bunch of tourists that were ready to lose. They all took squares and Travis started videoing. Bo took the square they left him and gave a long call of "Woo! Pig! Suey! Suey!" I know that's not how it's supposed to do, but the only way I'm going to do it right is real loud, and we're not going to do that here. That was mostly for theatrics, and Travis rang a bell. These pigs were trained to know that sound. The brush settled, and something grunted. One of the girls screamed and ran to hide behind Travis. Most of these guys top out at about 150, 200 pounds, but the largest killed on record here was nearly 800 pounds. They are generally 3 to 6 feet long, and can run up to 30 miles per hour. The first boar charged into the clearing, and 2 people darted from their squares at the sight of him. Big and squealing, with wiry black hair and 3-inch-long tusks, he was moving fast. He charged straight at Bo. Bo jumped him and came back down on his square. The boar hit the spool so hard he nearly toppled it as he attacked the candied corn. Did you know a boar can eat a man in 30 minutes? Bo asked Brett, who laughed. I think they're more interested in that corn, he yelled, as he narrowly managed to skirt one. Boars of all sizes poured from the forest and cleared most of the field. Soon only Brett and Bo remained. Ironically, a small piglet nearly cost Bo his square as he dodged a larger one and nearly tripped over it. He managed to right himself just as a sow ran at Brett. Brett launched himself in the air, successfully jumping it, but he tripped coming back down. He stumbled off his square, landing on his ass. "Winner!" Travis yelled, and Bo abandoned his square to jerk Brett to safety before he got trampled. "Dude," Brett yelled and slung his arm around Bo's shoulder. "That was awesome." When they were back on the boat, Travis nudged Brett and said, "Check it out." The replay delighted Brett, even though he'd lost. Travis gave him the footage and he chattered all the way back, excited to look like a badass to his friends back home in Michigan. He'd also gotten a nice little scrape on his leg. Bo had seen the square pop up, but if Brett wanted to tell people it was from a tusk, it made no difference to him. They invited Travis and Bo back to their motel to drink and do some pills. Travis declined. After hours, boar poker was as far into lawlessness as he ever ventured. Bo checked his phone. Still nothing from Ren. "Hell yeah," he told them, "I'm in." "Room 252 at the Continental," the blonde said. Bo and Travis watched them leave, then split the money. "Be careful," Travis said. "See you tomorrow." In his truck, Bo looked at his phone again, then tapped contacts and called Ren. She let it go to voicemail. Fine. He hid his part of the winnings in an empty Marlboro Red box and stuffed it beneath his seat. Then he drove to the motel and partied with them until nearly 3 a.m. When he left, he did not leave alone. When the rest of her crew passed out from the booze and pills, the blonde grabbed his arm and said, "Let's go." Deeply disappointed at this next. Bo knew he shouldn't be driving, not in the state he was in. But at this hour, there wasn't a lot of traffic, especially where they'd be going. He hit the back roads and was headed to the lake when the blonde started kissing his neck and trying to unfasten his belt. "Hold on," he said, trying to push her wild tangle of hair out of his face. "We're almost..." The bow drifted over the center line, then overcorrected. His tires hit loose gravel, and he lost control. The truck flipped at least 3 times. His head hit the roof, then the windshield. I'm sorry if this is triggering for anybody. This is the problem with random stories. I need to have more of a warning in case of this sort of thing. When Bo opened his eyes, he was lying in the grass, staring straight up at a big orange moon. He felt weird, light, but basically unbroken. He sat up. The twisted wreckage of his truck crumpled against a tree a few yards away. The blonde hung halfway out the windshield, looking like a broken doll. He saw her try to move and scrambled to her. Hang on, he said. "I'm calling for help." But his phone wasn't in his pocket. He couldn't find it anywhere. "I'm going to go get help," he said. "Don't leave me," she screamed. "Please don't leave me." Yeah, this is... Not knowing what else to do, Bo stumbled toward the road, hoping to flag someone down. It was over. His life was over. And we have so much story left, so I guess this is the spookiest bit of this. As soon as he got behind the wheel, we knew it. Still, it was fast, so I'm sorry for anybody that's not doing well for it. I can take a break. I can give someone time. But I think now we're getting into the... Thank you, Mad Max. I think now we're getting into ghostly sort of things. This is interesting. Because as it said, he was dead. That's it. His life was over. He thought of his mama, of Ren. He'd go to prison for this. And never see either of them again. Oh no, wait. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not dead. Maybe he was just talking figuratively. Bo staggered down the road. Yep, okay, he's alive. He wasn't sure where he was, or how far from town. All he knew was there wasn't a goddamn thing moving on this road, and that his head was pounding. He pressed his hand to the back of it, and it came away wet with blood. Something orange glowed off the road. In the distance, he squinted at it. Noted the moon was orange a minute ago, too. Yeah, this is ooh, what happened? Okay, this is gonna be something. Was that a campfire out here? Maybe they had a phone. Bo stumbled onto the campsite, if it could be called that, because there was no tent or camper, just a lone man in a black hoodie and dark jeans, sitting on a log poking the fire. He didn't look up as Bo approached. "Hey man, do you have a phone? We've had an accident. A girl is hurt." "She's dead now," the man said, and looked up. "Might as well have a seat." Whether it was some trick of the light from the dancing flames or Bo's head injury, the man's features seemed to shift like sand. When he looked away, they fell back in place. He looked somehow familiar. Ooh, here we've got our cryptid or something. Bo felt disoriented, lightheaded. A concussion, he thought. I have a concussion. The man patted the log beside him. Bo swayed on his feet. Then, almost as if he didn't have control of his own body, he walked over and took a seat. "Please," he said, "a phone?" The man shook his head. "Too late for that. Too late for her, too late for you." His face seemed to slide again as he turned back to the fire. Bo couldn't discern if he was young or old, or pin down even one distinguishing characteristic of his features. It was like he was looking into a rippling pool. "Your poor grandmother," the man said, with a mournful cluck. Want to see her face when the sheriff comes to tell her about you?" He pointed at the fire with the end of his stick, and helplessly Bo turned to look at it. For a moment, he saw nothing but flames and embers, but then a picture emerged from the shadows. Shaky at first, the focus tightened until Bo could distinctly make out his mama's house and the sheriff's blazer driving up to it. Bo's grandmother came out to greet him, and the sheriff took his hat off and held it in his hands. "Jessamine," he said, "I have some bad news." "No," she moaned, her face crumpling. "Not my boy, Fred, not my boy." She took a staggering step, then hit her knees. The sheriff bounded up the stairs as she crashed backwards. He had his radio in his hand, screaming for dispatch to send an ambulance. The hooded man chuckled. "Guess she wasn't lying, huh? She really couldn't take getting that news." Bo swung at him and nearly toppled into the fire when his fist passed straight through. "All right, good night, Mad Max. Hopefully we'll have you again soon." He gasped and tried to push himself backward, but he couldn't move. The hooded man laughed. For just a moment, it was like looking into a mirror. Then the man's features dissolved again. "Am I dead?" Bo stammered. "Are you death?" "Yes to the first, no to the second." "Okay, so he is dead. All right." "When people die, sometimes it's obvious which way they're headed. We don't tie up in a lot of bureaucracy here, if that can be helped. And I thought it was pretty safe to assume no one would argue my claim on you. Don't you agree?" The eyes beneath his hood suddenly glowed redder and brighter than the fire. "You're the devil?" "You have a great rest of your night too, Mad Max. Good night." "You can call me Lucifer," he said casually. "After all, we'll be seeing a lot of each other now." He grinned. "How about the lovely Wren? How do you think she will react?" A vision of Wren appeared, sobbing on the floor of her bathroom. She retched and vomited as her mother tried to comfort her. "You really missed the boat with that one. What a beauty. And you treated her like shit, didn't you?" "Why are you doing this?" Bo demanded. "Just take me on to wherever you're going to take me then." "Consider this phase 1 of your punishment. You get to see how your miserable life affected everyone who loved you. Sad thing is, Wren doesn't even get a break now that you're gone. Guess what? She's pregnant. The gift that keeps on giving. Will she keep the little bastard, you think?" Bo's chest ached. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He watched Wren through the flames, crying inside the doctor's office while her mother sat beside her. "Don't do it," he whispered. "Wren, don't do it." She jumped up and ran from the room, while her mother shouted at her to think about what she was doing. The fire shimmered, then the scene was Wren, huge with his child, sitting on her front porch with Parker Singleton. Bo had always hated Parker, the banker's son, who'd always been in love with Wren. But if he were to be honest, it was because he was everything Bo wasn't. So this was good, right? Parker would take care of her. "Her, maybe," Lucifer said, reading his thoughts. "But what about the brat? I'm sure he'll love that reminder. If she even keeps it. Shall we see?" His next vision was the delivery room, of the nurse placing the baby in Wren's arms. A blanket obscured most of the infant's face, and Bo found himself yearning to see it. Parker smiled when Wren glanced up at him, but that smile disappeared when she looked back at the baby. "Congratulations, it's a boy," Lucifer poked the fire, stirring the embers around until he settled on an image of the infant suckling at Wren's breast. Bo's first clear glimpse of his child took his breath away. So beautiful, with a thick head full of dark hair and Ren's button nose. She names him Remy, if you even care. Kind of a dumbass name, if you ask me. Ren, Bo, Remy. Y'all have dumbass names. Probably get beaten up in kindergarten. He stirred the coals. What's this? Maybe at home, too. A little dark-haired boy of about 5 lay on the floor, coloring. Bo knew immediately it was Remy. A blond boy, who appeared to be around 2 or 3, reached to grab the box of crayons, and Remy snatched them away. Parker seized Remy by the hair of his head and jerked him backwards so hard Bo thought his neck would snap. He slapped the boy, sending him crashing against the sofa. When Ren tried to intervene, he slapped her, too. No, Bo cried. Ren grabbed the boy and crouched over him, shielding him with her body. Parker yelled something and stormed from the room. When the boy stopped crying and went back to coloring, Ren poured herself a drink and gulped it down, tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at her children. Well, I'm sure she does the best she can, Lucifer said sympathetically. Do you think he'll turn out to be a sack of shit like you, or a sack of shit like Parker? Maybe a lush like his mom. A teenage boy fought with Parker on a lawn. The sight of him stunned Bo. He was almost a doppelganger for himself at that age, except he had Ren's eyes. The boy connected a wild swing that sent Parker reeling, then stalked toward the motorcycle in the driveway. Ren ran down the steps in her nightgown, trying to stop him. He shook her off, and she fell in a drunken heap on the grass as he peeled out of there. Remy drove to the graveyard, where he parked and stalked toward one of the monuments. Bo read his own name etched in the marble. Well, how sweet, Lucifer said. Look, Dad, he still comes to visit. Oh dear. Lucifer touched his fingertips to his mouth in a mock dismay as the boy pissed on the tombstone. Then Remy sat on the grass to cry. If you think this is the stuff that we've read so far is triggering, I'm sorry, and we only have worse to go as well, apparently. Or at least more. To Bo's horror, Remy took a syringe, a spoon, and other paraphernalia from his pocket, and tied off his arm as he prepared his dose of heroin. It's too much, Bo said. Even though he'd never done heroin, he'd seen it and knew this was too much. Please stop him. The devil's face shifted again as he smiled. You, good sir, have nothing to bargain with. And also, this is just a preview. Little bugger has a good 17 years to work up to that level of misery. Bo watched his son convulse and vomit, then go still. Well, that's that, said Lucifer. We could watch a little more Ren, but that even depresses me, watching a beauty like that go to seed. So I'll summarize. A few more years of drinking, a few hundred more Parker punches, then she wraps her Mercedes round a tree suspiciously close to where you died. People always wondered if she meant to do it, but really no one cares at that point. Let's see, who else will care when they learn you're dead? Travis, a little. Lucifer scrunched his face, wiggling his hand in a side-to-side motion. But he's such a goody-goody, he'd care if anyone died, so you're not special. His job just got a lot safer, for sure. Who else? Lucifer shrugged. That's about it. Wow, that didn't take long. He clapped Bo's shoulder. Oh, cheer up, I'm just poking at you. You may not have had many people who loved you, but your death sure wrecked the ones who did. I suppose that counts for something, right? A lasting impression. Bo buried his face in his hands and sobbed. Lucifer didn't speak, didn't rush him. Bo's mind raced, trying to think of any deal, anything he could promise to save them. He didn't care what happened to himself, but he'd do anything to keep Ren, Remy, and Mama from those fates. Surely there was something. When he lifted his head to ask, he found himself sitting behind the wheel of his truck. Both he and the truck were whole and unharmed, parked outside the motel. The clock on the dash read 1:13, which was the time he arrived. Bo touched the back of his head, which was damp with sweat, not blood. Then he threw the truck in reverse. He headed to Wren's as fast as he dared. She had her own place, a tiny house in Clare. He clipped her mailbox and nearly forgot to put the truck in park before he bounded out of it and ran to her door. He beat on it with both fists until the porch light flicked on. "What do you want?" her sleepy voice demanded. "Do you know what time it is? I have to work tomorrow." "Wren, please, let me in. I have to talk to you." "Well, I don't have anything to say to you. Leave before I call the cops." "Look, I know this front door isn't the only thing standing between you and me, but I'm gonna make it right. I love you, Wren. Please." Silence from the other side of the door. He'd never told her he loved her before, never told anyone that except for his mama, and he hadn't told her enough. Wren cracked the door, leaving the chain in place. Bo took one look at her face and started to cry. Ugly, heaving sobs. For whatever reason, he'd been given another chance. He wasn't about to let it pass by. The chain rattled and Wren jerked open the door. "What is it?" she demanded. "Has something happened to your mama?" Bo seized her in his arms and buried his face in her hair. She held him as he bawled like a baby. "Is it Mama?" she asked again, and he shook his head. She pulled back and peered at his pupils. "Are you high? What have you taken? Why do you smell like smoke?" Once she determined he was sober, she let him in. Even though he knew it sounded crazy, he wasn't going to lie to her. He was done with that. "I saw the devil tonight, Wren. He showed me the future." Her face turned pretty red and her nostrils flared. "Bo, I swear to God, I saw him," he insisted. "I was gonna die tonight. He showed me what it would do to you, to Mama, and our son." "Our son?" "If you've taken something, you need to tell me so I can get you to a hospital." "I'm telling you the truth. You're pregnant and—" "I'm not pregnant." "You are," he insisted, and gave her an abbreviated version of what had just happened. She sat quietly until he finished, then took his hand. "Look, I can tell that you believe this happened. It did. But, Bo, I'm not pregnant. I'm not even late." "You will be, but it's okay. I'm going to take care of you, Wren, and him. I love you, and I'm done with all the wild stuff. You always know when I'm lying. Look at my face." Her green eyes searched his blue ones. Then she sighed and brushed a soft kiss on his mouth. "I know you think it's true." She shushed him with a finger to his lips when he opened his mouth to interrupt. "And I want to believe you can change because I love you. I really do. And I always have. But what happens a few weeks from now, when you find out I'm not pregnant, and this was just some dream or trip or something? Are you going to break my heart again? Because I can't do this anymore." He brushed her long brown hair back and kissed her. "One chance. I know I don't deserve it, but please give me one last chance." She closed her eyes and bit her top lip, considering. Then she looked up at him and said, "Okay." Later, as he lay his head in her lap and she stroked his hair, she said, "But why would the devil try to warn you? What would he have to gain?" Even though the hour was late, Jessamine sat on her back porch, contentedly snapping green beans and tossing them into a bowl. She'd just gotten off the phone with Bo, who'd called to tell her he was spending the night at Wren's and would see her tomorrow. Also that he loved her and that he was going to straighten up. Something in his voice told her he meant it. She sensed her visitor before she saw him. Her old eyes weren't what they used to be, but she knew trouble when it walked up. "Witch," he said. "Devil," she replied. "I've come for what you promised me." He climbed the steps and sat in the rocking chair beside hers. Jessamine stood, wincing at the arthritis in her old joints, then put the bowl in his lap and shuffled inside the house. Yep. Also, that little bird. Oh my gosh, I love that bird. No, death no. Okay. Extra hot sauce? She asked through the screen door, and the devil replied, please. He snapped beans until she returned with his bowl of gumbo and a glass of sweet tea. Lucifer traded bowls with her and gave an appreciative sniff. He sighed when he took a bite. Still the best cook around, I see. Spooning another mouthful, he said, I think it got your boy straightened out. Thank you. I wish I hadn't waited so long and so late in life to have him. That boy's just about worked me over. I wanted to make sure he was going to be all right before I kicked the bucket. Well, you have to hang on a little bit longer, Lucifer said between bites, because I know you'll want to get your hands on that new grandbaby. Wren's expecting, but she doesn't know yet. Jessamine clapped her hands in delight. That is going to be a lovely child. Of course he is, Lucifer scoffed. I mean, look at his parents and his grandparents. You were always so breathtaking. She blushed, then said, a boy, isn't that something? Bo was the most endearing little thing. I was always sad that I could never tell him I was his mother. But I was already 70 years old by the time he was born. Jeez. Jessamine, Mamaw, how did you do that? Okay. Jessamine snorted. Oh, no, wait, no. He knew you as his mother in every way that mattered, Lucifer smiled. But you could have used a glamour spell. He didn't have to see you old. Jessamine snorted. Easy for you to say. Those things take way too much energy for a human to maintain. Better not to fight it sometimes, but I do miss the days when nothing ached. Instantly, the years melted off Jessamine. She stared down at the boys she'd had at 19. Oh, wow, she said, cupping her breasts. I forgot these used to be up so high. All right. Lucifer laughed long and heartily, then reached for her hand and pressed it to his lips. Dearest Jessamine, when you die, this world will be a much lesser place. I don't father many children anymore. The human side is too unpredictable. But I'm glad I fathered this one. No wonder Bo's a dick. Okay. He's been so entertaining to watch. Absolutely fearless. That has not always been a positive quality. Combined with your good looks, he's almost lethal. Lucifer patted her hand and smiled. He's gonna be okay. I'll keep my eye on him. You have my word. Jessamine grinned, and he looked offended. What? Even the devil wants his children to be happy. She put the bowl of beans aside and stood. Oh, that's not what I was smiling about. Jessamine took his hand and drew him up beside her, wrapping her arms around his neck. She said, How long did you say this glamour will last? He rested his hands on her hips and smiled. A good 5 hours or so. Just what are you proposing, witch? She pushed his hood back and kissed his cheek. Just a little reminiscing between old friends. What do you say, my handsome devil? I think that sounds like the best idea I've heard in ages. Lucifer picked her up and carried her into the shack. The end. Stephanie Scissom. That was a good one. All right. I thought because Grandma had, had the tarot card thing, and there was like a, why is she praying for me now kind of moment. I was expecting her to have something to do with when we get spooky and cryptid. And then it did. I just didn't know until the very last. That was good. I'm wondering what kind of stuff I should put up, if there's some sort of warning I should put for anybody that joins because of the possible trigger warnings and stuff. But I don't know how to do that sort of thing. I know that there's like content warnings at the start that some people do, but I didn't put it in place. So I wonder if I need to do that. Certainly I can look it up for the next time I go randomly for creepypasta. I should have known that would happen. For the fairy tales I've been reading, as much as they do sometimes stumble into something less than best, it's usually pretty safe. So, yeah, I'm not sure what to put up for that, but that was intervention. The devil had an intervention with his son. What a time. Well. Okay. I'm gonna hit random story again. We're gonna say goodbye to intervention. But I'm very glad I read it. That was fun. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I put up a little text box, something that goes like above the chat right now. Maybe if I put that up now, like a little warning thing, that these are random stories and can have any trigger concerns. I can do that right now. I'll do that. Yeah, dicey in the middle. Okay. I'm gonna put up a little warning for that. Based on what I've seen now and what I know of with these creepypasta stories is that they can get any kind of triggering. Any. Okay. I'm gonna do the little text. It's not gonna be great, but it's something. Sorry, this is taking a minute. I'm trying to make sure I have it ready. Okay. I think that works. Huh? Okay. I want it legible and good. Oh goodness, what just happened? Now that looks completely different. Welcome back. That looks awful. Why does it have to look weird every time? Okay, what is happening? That looks good. Oh my gosh. Okay, don't ruin it. Alright. Okay. I think it's set. Alright. Now I have a trigger warning up. Oh. Well, it takes a minute. There's a slightly... Okay. I think that's good, right? That looks legible and like a good warning. And yeah, if you are specifically, like, of course, as I've done before, I just don't do slurs. So I'm not gonna read those and I'll say something else. But with the other stuff, I'll do things. So if you tell me while I'm reading this, like, okay, can we skip this bit? I will summarize and move on. Or don't use that kind of language, please. That's the sort of thing where I can be like, okay, they say that again, and we move on. Slurs are definitely beneath us. We are not doing those, motherfuckers. But yeah, there you go. You have your warning. Hitting the next random story, and we will have these up next. Okay. Whew. Random story coming up. If I miss a slur, please do tell me. I mean, there's some that are like, the word sounds like a slur because it has very similar sounds to something, but yeah. Anyway, okay. Next random story. I've clicked it. It's loading. Aha, it says, kill the Curdler. Now this one, the last one had 10 out of 10 stars. This one has 9. We'll see what people be thinking. It is written by Micah Edwards. So kill the Curdler. No idea what that means exactly, but we're gonna find out. Oh, one question? Go ahead. Just before I do this. A curdler? Yeah. Curdle is like milk curdling, going bad. And it's written like that. You'll see. Kill the Curdler. So, I don't know what it is. We'll have to find out. But it gives me the feeling that it's like based on person that curdles things. Maybe. Who knows? But we're gonna kill them, I guess. Here we go. poster was simple. Someone had done their best with it, but their best wasn't very good. Monster hunters wanted. The boldly misspelled words at the top. Oh, acoustic weapon that used to. That's interesting. But the story is referring to a poster that's misspelled. Oh, Monster Hunters Wanted is what it says, but it's spelled Monster Hunters instead of ER. It's IRs. That's all. Monster Hunters Wanted read the boldly misspelled words at the top. Below that was a drawing straight out of a child's imagination. It showed a hunchback creature with big, staring eyes and a drooling mouth. It had pointy ears and spines running down its back. Clutched in its huge claws was something that was probably supposed to be a cow, judging by the horns. Other lumps at its feet suggested that it had killed more than one. The large print beneath the picture was the interesting part. $300 reward. So it has the $300 with the $sign and then dollar and then reward instead of reward. It's misspelling. What do you figure, Walt? Asked Joe. The two men were among the dozens who had gathered around when the stranger began nailing copies of this sign to posts all around the train station. When asked, he'd only said that his town, Evota Falls, was desperate to find whatever was killing their cattle, and that proof of the money would be shown to any would-be hunters who arrived. Said Walt, drawing the syllables out like stretching taffy. Seems fairly suspect to my mind. A couple of days out there by train just to find out that they're planning to short you on the payment, like as not. Maybe splitting it between folks, maybe charging for room and board, maybe flat out paying less than the poster says. Nothing a couple days back, still out of your own pocket, and you've lost a week's worth of work for nothing. Another couple days back. Slightly misreading this, sorry. But the reward, that's a year's wages, Walt. What? $300 is a year's worth? That's a year's wages, Walt. You're talking about losing a week. But this is more than 50 weeks' pay. For what? A couple of train rides, one sleepless night, and one single bullet? Joe eyed his friend slyly. Maybe a few more, if you've been lying about how good you are. I don't lie, said Walt. You've seen me shoot. Cans, sure. Anybody can shoot a can. You're telling me your hand would be just as steady staring down that thing? Joe tapped the picture. If it's there, I can shoot it. I don't miss what I set my eye to. Come on, Walt, let's go check it out. I got the money for the train on me. But if it don't pan out, you don't have to pay me back. So we're a team on this, huh? You know they're splitting the money between us if we're a team. That's half your 50 weeks gone right there. Despite Walt's words, Joe could hear from his friend's tone that he'd already won. Walt wanted to go investigate as much as he did. Gripe all you want, I'm buying the tickets unless you're stopping me. Throw your money away however suits your fancy, Walt told him. Joe grinned and scampered off to the ticket booth. Walt watched him go, then tore the poster from the wooden pole. Hey, I was reading that, complained another man. You already read what you need to read, Walt told him. If you're coming, go buy a ticket like my fool friend over there. I'm taking this with me to prove when I get there that they offered a bounty of $300. I won't have them cheating me by claiming maybe I misremembered. For all Walt's complaining, he was intrigued. He'd always had a fondness for the stories of monsters growing up. He had been disappointed disappointed as an adult to learn that they were nothing but tall tales. Deep in his heart, he still harbored hope that someday he would discover something truly unknown and bizarre, the sort of thing that others had believed existed only in fiction. He knew the likelihood of this was small, but the poster appealed to that hidden part of him. Logically, it was certainly going to be a waste of their time and Joe's train tickets, and yet, what if it wasn't? What if there really was something strange and new in Evota Falls? Walt shrugged his knapsack higher on his shoulders and looked over to where Joe was waving 2 paper tickets at him from the booth. He had nothing in particular tying him to this town, anyway. He folded the poster into a small square, tucked it into his pocket, and sauntered off to catch a train with his excitable friend. I'll interrupt just to say I think that this is like a little bit older times, not just by the paper tickets, but the way they're saying $300 is a year's wage. Just a guess. The train ride was hot, loud, and uncomfortable, but soon enough, Joe and Walt found themselves standing on a ramshackle wooden platform declaring itself to be the Evota Falls train's depot. A half-dozen other men disembarked along with them, and the whole group exchanged wary glances as they took in their surroundings. "Not much here," said Walt to the world in general. A murmur of assent arose from the men around them. "Look, there's a welcome sign," said Joe, running forwards to read it. "Welcome, monster hunters. Ask for Mayor Ackerman at the boarding house." "Shoot, let's go." "Don't suppose you have any idea where the boarding house is, do you?" asked Walt as they left the station. Joe's eagerness had positioned him as the leader, and the rest of the group trailed behind them. Can't be but so hard to find. Bet it's that big house over there." Joe pointed across the strip of dirt that could loosely be called a street to a multi-story wooden building. It looked to be new construction and relatively freshly painted, and was easily 3 times the size of any other building in the tiny town. "It had better be," said Walt, "as it's the only place around here likely to fit us all in one place. Otherwise, we're going to be monster hunting in shifts." The man who greeted them at the door was tall, rangy, and looked more like a cattle rustler than a politician, but he introduced himself as Mayor Ackerman and invited the motley crew into the house. "Looks like you folks are our last batch of the day," said the mayor, "so we'll give you all the rundown that the others got, and then we'll get you started. First of all, the question that's on all your minds. Yes, the money's good. Show 'em, Delia." The unsmiling woman across the room opened up a leather satchel that was stuffed with coins and paper notes. "If you can count it all you like," said the mayor, "but it's 300, sure enough. We all dug deep to pitch in, but it'll be well worth it if you can get rid of whatever's been killing off our livestock. Second, I'm going to give you the bad news. There's 8 of you here and that many again upstairs, and that money's only going to one of you. That one brings back the corpse of the Curdler. Walks out with the bag. The rest of you get a hearty breakfast and a fond farewell at the station. It ain't fair, but it's how it is." Walt nudged Joe. "Told you." "Shh," Joe said. His eyes were fixed on the leather satchel, like he was trying to count the coins from where he stood. Walt rolled his eyes and turned his attention back to the mayor. "So grab seats, and the food will be out shortly. Delia's made up a batch of beef stew to let you know what we're defending out here, and I think you'll agree it's something special. Once you've all ate, we'll get you guides, and you can head out to find it. Curdler's never been spotted before midnight, so there's no rush. But I know some of you are going to want to scope out a few areas, probably settle yourself in before that thing comes sniffing around. So our monster is called a Curdler." It is the Curdler. Delia clanged a large brass bell, and the other bounty hunters the mayor had mentioned began to make their way downstairs. The dining room seated the entire crowd, but space was at a premium, and Delia had to elbow more than one man out of her path as she made her way through with bowls of soup. Walt cast an eye over the group as he waited for his food to arrive. He judged that he was the oldest of them all at nearly 30. Joe was probably the youngest. He swore he was 22, but Walt would have been surprised if he'd seen his 18th birthday. The rest were somewhere in the middle, and their attitudes ran the gamut from excited anticipation to aloof detachment. All of them carried their guns casually, and the holsters showed signs of regular use. None of them were strangers to violence. Joe, of course, was the most excitable of them all. What did he call it? The Curdler? Do you think it looks like the poster? Mayor said we'd be getting a guide, Joe. Ask him your questions instead of bothering me when you know I don't know. Where should we go to shoot it? We gonna go hide out in a barn and wait? We'll ask the guide, Joe, and we'll do it away from these gentlemen so we don't all end up in the same place. Maybe a small town, but I'm sure there's more than enough territory for 16 men to find their own space and not have to worry about who shot the beast first. Joe looked shamefaced. Sorry, Walt. Soup's here. Put your mouth to good use instead of flapping your gums. Yeah, this is definitely old. Flapping your gums. Okay. They, in relative silence, aside from the slurps and the scraping of spoons on bowls. The mayor was right. The beef stew really was something special. It was rich and tangy, with a flavor Walt couldn't place. Evota Falls was right to be proud of their cattle. I don't know if that was cattle. He flagged Delia down to ask for a second bowl. If the soup might be his only payment for coming out here, Walt was going to make the most of it. After dinner, the mayor clapped his hands to get their attention. All right, we've gathered up a bunch of folks who've seen the Curdler. Nice little emote. Yeah, well, just the fact any time when someone in a spooky story is like, and the meat was good, but there was something I couldn't place, I'm like, oh no. We know what it is. Okay. Because you know. We've gathered a bunch of folks who've seen the Curdler. They're waiting for you outside. So file out and we'll get you paired up. Also, there's some degree of they have all these men that come in and head out and come in and head out. Okay. The group outside was mainly made up of young women, to Walt's surprise. There were a couple of boys in their teens and a few kids as well, but 90% of the town guides were female. Exactly the special. Anyway, also now we have the women leading them. Sometimes that's the sort of honey trap kind of a thing. All right, whispered Joe. I'm not going to mind sitting up all night with, hey, what are you doing? Walt had crossed directly to one of the teen boys and clasped his shoulder. What's your name? So Joe was like, oh, okay, we'll hang out with one of these ladies. And Walt is like, nope. Let's go hang out with the little boy. That sounds awful, but Samuel, and this is my brother Roscoe, the teen said, indicating a nearby boy of perhaps 10. Perfect. 2 guides for the 2 of us. I'm Walt, and this is my friend Joe. Why'd you pick him for? Asked Joe. Because we're supposed to be keeping our eyes out for a monster, and you showed me exactly where your eyes were going to be if I let you choose the guide. Exactly. Quit skulking and let's move. We got our guide, so now's your time to ask those questions. Fine, said Joe, falling in line with the small groups as they moved away from the boarding house. So, what can you tell us about this Curdler? Oh, it's huge, Roscoe piped up. I've seen it lurking off at the edges of the fields. It can step right over the fence. You'll never be less on my guard in those staminations, male or female? I don't know what that word is. It can step right over the fence, the little 10-year-old Roscoe says. Situations. Oh, yeah. Okay. Walt looked at Samuel skeptically, but Samuel was nodding along with his brother. Moves on all fours a lot of the time, but it can rear up on two when it wants to. Does that mainly right before it feeds. Scariest things that I've ever seen. Just this dark shadow looming over a cow with two big eyes way up at the top, reflecting back at you out at the night. He shuddered. It's nothing I ever want to see again. No offense, mister, but I'm hoping we're not the ones who find it at night. Joe snorted. Some guides you picked. Don't worry, Walt said, ignoring him. I promise you that if we see it tonight, it'll be the last time you ever have to see it. Or hear it, added Roscoe. What's it sound like? When it's moving, nothing at all. It's as quiet as a ghost most of the time. But it can scream like... Roscoe inhales deeply. Don't, said Samuel, putting his hand over his brother's mouth. Just like a 10-year-old to be like, oh, but it screams like... Anyway, okay. All right, Roscoe muttered, shoving Samuel's hand away. Anyway, it'll freeze your blood solid to hear it. Does that to stop the bulls fighting back. Stops them dead in their tracks. Might even kill them, that's how bad it is. Oh, no, your dyslexia doesn't... It's because, I was like, how does that work? But you're all good. Cage White Nightwind, is that the 10-year-old about to do his screaming impression, or? Okay. Perfect, I thought so. I can feel Roscoe's little kid energy right now. Alright. It'll do the same to you if you're not careful, Samuel said to Walt and Joe. Lock your finger right there on the trigger. Scare you so bad you can't move. I think I'll be okay, said Walt. Where was it seen the last 2 times? Just point in the general direction. The 2 boys pointed, settling on the same direction after a moment. That was 2 nights ago. And then last night, it was at the neighbor's ranch out this way. It shows up every night, and no one's been able to stop it. We didn't put together that reward money for fun, said Samuel. I told you, it curdles your blood right there in your body. There's no thought in your head but staying perfectly still so it don't notice you anymore. Once you hear that scream, you'll understand. Then I guess we'd better shoot it before it opens its mouth, said Joe. Hey, Walt, think we're gonna get this thing? We might if we're smart. Come on, let's go set up. If it's been moving this way the last 2 nights, might just be that it'll keep going that way. Take us to the closest field in that direction, Samuel. With the boys offering direction, Walt and Joe found a low hummock overlooking the prairie. A few scrawny cows wandered about, chewing desolately at the sparse grass. Yeah, now we know why it's a curdler. Not much of a herd, Joe remarked. The curdler's been feeding for some time, said Samuel. Surprised you can keep cows out here even without something eating them, Walt said. That grass is mighty thin. There's been no water source that I've seen either. We've got wells, said Samuel. There's nothing to keep things alive out here if you're willing to do the work. There's enough to keep things alive out here if you're willing to do the work. The late evening slid away into night. The stars and moon cast everything in a dim, silvery veil. The 2 men and their guides waited patiently, flattened on their stomachs on the small hilltop. Conversation died out. Walt was content to wait in silence, and Joe thankfully followed his lead. Roscoe was antsy though, squirming from place to place, and Samuel's patience seemed little better. Okay, so the kidlets are freaking out a little bit. Eventually, Roscoe fell asleep. For a moment, Walt thought they might finally have stillness. Then Samuel rose to his feet and stretched. He began, only to be cut off by a sharp sibilance from Walt. Shh, get back down. A shadow moved beyond the cows, creeping along in the silhouette of the fence. Walt leveled his gun, taking careful aim. "Wait!" Samuel cried, fear in his eyes. He dropped to his knees, reached for the gun, but Walt had already fired. Uh-oh. Roscoe startled awake at the gunshot. Out by the fence line. Oh no, this is not good. A figure reared up briefly and dropped. Roscoe screamed and scrambled down the hill toward it, shouting, "Pa! Pa! What? Get your hands off my gun, boy!" Walt's feeling of satisfaction vanished as Samuel snatched at the gun, trying to wrest it away from him. "Drop it! What's he doing, Walt?" shouted Joe. Walt slugged Samuel, sending him reeling. "What's gotten into you?" Suddenly an unearthly howl went up, a loud, cacophonous shriek that seemed to just keep gaining volume as it went along. Okay, I'm very confused. I need to go back. Wait, Samuel cried. He drops to his knees, reaching for the gun, but Walt has already fired. Roscoe awakes. He scrambles down the hill towards a figure that had got up and then dropped. He yells, "Pa!" Sam and Walt wrestling. Joe is shouting at Samuel, asking what is he doing. Walt slugs Samuel, sending him reading, "What's gotten into you?" Suddenly the unearthly howl went up, a loud cacophonous shriek that seemed to just keep gaining volume as it went along. Came not from one location, but from everywhere, ringing the town. "How many of 'em are there, Walt?" Joe's eyes were wide and frightened. A gunshot rang out, and then another. "I don't know, something's..." Walt staggered toward Joe, hands clutching his side. In the moonlight, the gushing blood looked black. Okay, so... Whoa, wait a minute. A gunshot rang out, and then another. Who knows where? I don't know. Walt staggers. Behind him stood Samuel with a knife. His expression was feral as he darted in for another stab. All I know is that our little dude, the teen Samuel, is stabbed Walt. One more gunshot sounded as Walt fired again. Samuel crumpled to the ground with a hole in his chest. His eyes were blank and empty before he hit the dirt. Yeah, okay. See, remember the meat and all that? I was wondering, how do they have the nice meat if the cows are all thin? "It's a setup, Joe," Walt wheezed. "Come on, we're getting out of here." Joe tried to lift his friend, but Walt pushed him away. "No, we ain't. You still are. You still are, though. Run. Stay low." Walt swallowed painfully. "I'll watch you from here for as long as I can. I may be going, but I ain't gone yet. What I set my eye to, I don't miss." Yep. Okay. Joe started to say something, then stopped. He nodded to Walt and took off down the hill in a crouched run. Also, of course, Roscoe running, yelling, "Pa, Pa." Kind of a note that, like, that was someone he loved. Like, what's going on there? What do you mean you assume that that's your dad? Okay. Slumped on the hillside, Walt steadied his arm on the ground ahead of him and focused along the barrel of his gun. A dark figure slipped from the night and pursued Joe for several steps, but Walt's gun spoke once, and the shape tumbled to the ground in an untidy tangle of limbs. Walt's side burned. The recoil had kicked the gun from his limp hand. He had not seen his target fall, but he knew he had not missed. "What I set my eye to," he whispered. His head slumped forward. His eyes saw nothing but darkness. Joe heard the gunshot and the thump of a falling body. He redoubled his efforts. willing his feet to run faster. He fled with no thought of where he was going, only that he needed to escape. Abruptly, Joe spotted another shape running toward him. He grabbed for his gun before he realized that not only was it not a monster, it was one of the young women from town. He slowed to wait for her. I'm not liking that choice, bud. Help, help, help me, help, she shouted as she ran toward him. Her hair was in disarray and her clothes were splattered with blood. They're dead, they're all dead. She threw herself at him in a violent embrace, wrapping her arms around his back and burying her head against his shoulder. Joe held her to him. Who's dead? He said. He never saw the knife in her hands. He barely had time to feel it stab through the side of his neck. Everyone, she said softly, extricating herself from his grasp as he collapsed. Everyone who's supposed to be. The mood back in town was somber. The pile of corpses in front of the boarding house contained not just the 16 monster hunters, but also 5 of their own. Roscoe was weeping on the porch while Delia tried to comfort him. They got my paw, he sobbed, and Samuel too. If his paw hadn't screwed up, none of this would have happened, muttered one of the men. That first shot put them all on their guard, made this 10 times as hard as it needed to be. Shut your mouth, Francis, said Mayor Ackerman. That's nothing the boy needs to hear right now. Let's get these bodies to the smokehouse and get this mess cleaned up. We'll have more coming in on the early train, like as not. What about Samuel and Earl then, and them? Francis asked, jerking his head at the bodies. Meat's meat, said the mayor. Put 'em all in. No sense letting any of it go to waste. Duh. Francis set his mouth to a thin line, but nodded. It could get tough feeding a family out here, where even the cows struggled to find enough grass to graze. There was always enough to keep things alive if you were willing to do the hard work. Yeah, Joe's dead, that's who. You, motherfucker. Yep, Murder Frog came in clutch this time. He's exactly where he needs to be. Kill the Curdler. That one was good. But get this, folks. Click here to read the sequel to this story. The Hunger of Evota Falls. So there's a sequel. And I think we ought to take that. We ought to do that. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Then I'm going to click it and we're going to do that one next. But since there's going to be an ad coming up, star in the eyes and bouncing perfect. And this one has 9.5 stars, so it did better than the last one. Haha. Okay, then I'm gonna read this one next, but I'm gonna change the text real quick. And then we'll get this. The Hunger of Evota Falls. Oh, not all caps. Oh my god. Hunger of Evota Falls. There you go. It was a surprising ending for you. I saw this shit from the start. I told you it was not cow meat. And then, yeah, as they were like, them cows be pretty skinny. I'm like, but they're still cows. And the grass is terrible. What's going on? And then, yeah, all the ladies are leading. This feels like a trap. So, boom. There you go. It was. They absolutely were hoping that the women would be distracting. And then all the men were busy because they had to play the monsters. Literally, it was like Walt being the smart man. I like that they blamed the kid's dad for messing up, but literally it was just that Walt was like, oh, okay, then we better shoot it before it opens its mouth. And he fucking did. Because that's what you told him, that if we give it the time to say something, then we're going to be ruined. So let's do that. Well, we have old-timey Western, and we had Louisiana, so yeah. Well, I can put it on thicker, but I think that that's annoying at that point. Don't be sorry for liking accents. Me too. All kinds of accents. Okay. But we're going to keep going. We have The Hunger of Evota Falls. And I'm freaking excited. I like that we have an update. We have a sequel. Okay. Just making sure I write this down in my book. The Hunger of Evota Falls. Okay. I'm excited. Spooky, spooky. Bounce, bounce, your little frog. Okay. You can't see me properly do it because the avatar won't do it quite well, but I'm bouncing too. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Okay. The following is a sequel to the story Kill the Curdler. Here we go. Okay. The funny thing about problems, Ackerman reflected, was that they never went away. They just changed into other problems. Sometimes smaller, sometimes larger, but never gone. Problems fed on each other, just like everything else. Plenty of times he'd seen the whole bunch of little problems get eaten up by a really big, tough one. Sometimes it even seemed like that might be a benefit. Sure, the big problem was huge and dangerous, even deadly, but it threatened everyone. The whole community could work together to take it down. As soon as that happened, as soon as that happened, 100 new, smaller problems would show up to feast. In no time at all, everything would be right back where it started. Take this town, Evota Falls. It had been a good town once, or at least a good idea. The railroad needed a resupply stop, a place to store things in the middle of the long trip through the desert. Someone thought the workers might pay for a little entertainment in the off hours. So then there was a saloon. That started doing well. Pretty soon came the general store and the wash house and the church. Next thing anyone knew, Evota Falls was a real town. The river had been the key, though. It was nothing but a muddy ribbon with water. Sorry, not totally sure if something's off with sound. Okay. The river had been the key, though. It was nothing but a big muddy ribbon with water that had to be boiled twice to get rid of the taste. But it grew plants all along its banks and made the desert just tolerable enough for life. At least it had, until that canal had been dug about 40 miles upstream and diverted the water. The falls were nothing but a big red cliff overlooking a dry riverbed now. The plants were dead, and Evota Falls was dying. That had been the big problem. All of the little ones got chewed up by that. Some folks packed up and left, but most of them, the ranchers, the store owners, the ones who really believed in the place, well, they were stuck. They'd sunk their money into the town, and they were well and truly sunk along with it. The preachers swore that the Lord would provide, of course. While they were waiting for that to happen, everyone left in town kind of figured that they were going to have to make do for themselves. They had to come up with something to kill this problem before it killed them. And so, eventually, they invented the Curdler. It hadn't been a quick decision. There'd been a lot of hand-wringing and soul-searching and general lamentations. But day by day, as the dust got thicker and the cattle got leaner, Folks started to come around. The dead man in the saloon was what finally did it. The barman, Cork, found him slumped back against the wall at the end of the night. A bottle tipped over in front of him. When Cork went to kick him out, though, the man was the same temperature as the wall he was leaning against. He'd been dead for hours. He was just some rail worker. No one knew his name or where he was from. He had no ID on him. All anyone did know was that he was a slight fatter. He was a slight fatter than anyone else in town. Interesting grammar there. Even then, no one wanted to make the first move. It had been the butcher, Ackerman, who stepped in, pushing his way through the murmuring crowd. Freudian slip, murdering crowd. He'd hefted the body up over his shoulder like a slide of beef. With a challenging glare, he dared any member of the crowd to meet his eye. None of them had. They moved aside as he headed for the door. "I'll share," he said. No one else saying anything at all. The preacher caught sight of him out in the street. He'd heard the talk. He knew how desperate things were getting. "The churchyard's this way," he called. "Surely you're looking for a place to bury that man?" "God has provided, Father," said Ackerman. "Be awful rude of us to dump his gift in a hole in the ground." "You know this isn't right." "Not a lot around here seems to be these days. What's one more? At least we can make this one wrong in our favor." "I won't let you do this." Ackerman turned slowly to face the preacher. His eyes burned with fury and resentment. He bared his teeth in a mockery of a smile. "I'd like to see you stop me." To his surprise, the preacher tried. He grabbed the dead man's ankles and attempted to haul him off Ackerman's shoulder. Ackerman pulled back, though, yanking the preacher off balance, and, well, maybe it was an accident, maybe it wasn't. Either way, there was a scuffle and a tumble and a thump, and then the preacher was lying at the foot of the horse trough, head half caved in, and blood gushing into the street. Ackerman looked around at the crowd. They stared back at him. Tension ran its nervous fingers along everyone's spine. They all knew that whatever happened next would determine the course of the town. They were all afraid to be the one to take action. With a grunt, Ackerman hauled the preacher's body from the ground and folded him across his other shoulder. He did not say a word as he walked off. His heavy burdens made his steps slow and deliberate. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it happened. Anyone could have said anything. No one did. And so the die was cast. That wasn't the solution to Evota Falls' starvation problem, of course. 2 bodies, especially one as spare as the preacher, would only go so far. But the railroad bought new bodies every single day. Yeah, it's a very Western and struggling kind of way to say it. Naturally, one of them were just passing through. That only made it easy. That only made it easier. Such folks were often unmoored, wandering without family or friends to worry about them. There was no one to notice or care if they went missing. Ackerman was weary of killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. He kept the people of Evota Falls from getting too greedy and taking too many travelers in too short a time frame. It was hard sometimes, especially when the children were whining for food and some plump out-of-towner was sitting right there. It wouldn't do to get caught, though. They'd all be hanged if the outside world discovered how they'd been getting by. Then Ackerman came up with a Curdler. Make up a murderous monster, he reasoned, and you'd get the monster hunters looking for it. Put a bounty on its head and you'd attract greedy men. Men prone to violence. The kind of men where nobody would bat an eye if they went missing. They might even consider it a blessing. Ackerman tested the waters curiously at first. He tried it out on a couple of men he met in a bar 2 cities away. A night of buying drinks, and a couple for the train ride was all it took to convince them to come along. He talked up the Curdler the whole way, describing its fearsome size, its terrible claws, the way it could scoop up a cow as easily as a man could pick up a mewling baby. In short, he made it sound like a proper tall tale. He didn't want the men actually worried about whatever they might run into. The Curdler was a yokel's retelling of a mountain lion half glimpsed. Dangerous enough to be worth the sport, but nothing to truly concern a couple of rough and ready men. The booze he was buying them was real enough, and Ackerman promised more when the job was done, so they came along willingly enough. They followed him right out to the ambush he'd prepared, and they were riddled with a half-dozen bullets apiece before their guns ever cleared leather. Once the bullets were picked out and the meat was dressed, the town ate well again for a few days. Ackerman was cheered by how well it had gone. The hunters had been so convinced that he was just a scared hick that they'd never considered him a threat. They'd been taken totally unawares when the townsfolk shot them down. And since absolutely no one knew what they'd come here, there was no chance that anyone would come looking. The next time Ackerman went out to talk up the Curdler, he brought back a group of 5 eager would-be hunters. Time after that, it was 8. Someone came up to the bright idea of making flyers like wanted posters. And after that, the hunters just started showing up on their own. They were always the same type. Loners, drifters, the kind who'd pull up stakes and run to a new town for the chance to strike it rich. Ackerman knew they'd never be missed. He'd never felt a drop of guilt preying on them either. They would have done it to him in an instant if the tables were turned. The trickle of hunters became a small but steady stream, and suddenly the town found itself with a new and surprising problem. From having too little food, they now had too much. Ackerman's slaughterhouse had never been intended for more than a few cows at a time. With the hunters coming in almost every single day, he simply couldn't process the meat fast enough. Even with help, there was only so much room to work. He needed more space. Evota Falls had never been a large town, though there were a number of abandoned buildings these days. Most were homesteads whose interior rooms were entirely too small for the work that needed to be done. In fact, as Ackerman looked around the town, he realized that there was really only one building with the space necessary to set up a full-scale shop. The church. Whew. A more religious man might have had an issue with turning a house of worship into an abattoir, particularly considering the nature of the meat. Then again, that hypothetical religious man might have told himself that it was Providence how everything fit together. Just when the town was in its darkest hour, the Lord had sacrificed his own servant and given his people a place to pursue their own salvation. A religious man might have decided that God had provided after all. Ackerman, an avowed atheist, had always found it best to avoid men of that particular sort of religious conviction. They could twist anything to prove that they were doing good. He was merely doing what was needed. There was little resistance. Townsfolk, having gone so far, did not balk at his newest desecration. And so, in a matter of days, the church was gutted and repurposed, changed from a house to cleanse men's souls to a hall to flens their bodies. The statuary was packed away, the pulpit was dismantled, the pews were taken apart and remade into long tables. The solid wood planks that had supported the town through many a sermon were soon scored by knives and stained a deep, irredeemable red. The people of Evota Falls came to work their shifts. There was no discussion, no official roster. They were simply people there when there was work to be done. Okay, everyone took their turn. Slowly, Ackerman found the work taken away from him. He would arrive at the church to find the bodies already separated, the offal discarded, the boiled bones being ground into meal. People nodded when he arrived, but did not step aside for him to take their place. He was in charge now, everyone knew it. One Sunday, one of the men greeted him with, "Hello, Reverend." "Absolutely not," Ackerman's voice rang out over the clamor of the charnel house. Knives skittered against the bone. Wheels ground to a halt. Everyone turned to look. "We did this," growled Ackerman. "For good or for ill, this is our doing. We will live or die here by our own deeds, our own words, our own hands. This is the work of men, not gods. If you want to give away the credit or the blame, I won't presume to say which, you can leave my name out of it." He turned on his heel and walked out without giving the man a chance to respond. No one ever addressed it, but a few days later, when someone called him mayor, Ackerman didn't object. If they needed a little title to set a man apart, then so be it. This was one he could accept. Though the physical work may have been shifted to others, Ackerman found himself far from idle. Now that starvation was no longer imminent, the 1,000 problems that came along with society began to reassert themselves, along with some new ones that were unique to the town's situation. For example, there was the matter of temporary housing. All the folks who'd come to hunt the Curdler needed some place to stay while they were in town. Never mind that they all ended up at the church before the first night was through. They didn't know that that was how it was to go down, and it would hardly do to tip them off to it. So they had to have rooms with beds, and they had to be fed. If they'd come in on the early train, then they had to be discouraged from getting too inquisitive and wandering around town, too. Most of them were far more likely to be drawn to the saloon than to the church, but it never hurt to take caution. At first, Ackerman just had them stay with the folks around town or the empty houses. It was inconvenient having them spread all about, though, and folks had a bad habit of laying claim to the possessions of hunters who'd been quartered in their house. He could see how things would be a lot smoother with all the hunters in one place. Only problem was that, again, no building was big enough. A rooming house would be just the thing, Ackerman thought. If only they had one, of course. He expected it would be difficult, too. When the mayor spoke, things happened. Not 2 weeks after he'd brought the idea, the town had one built. With a fresh coat of paint on the outside and some careful placement on the inside, it was impossible to tell it had been cobbled together from the boards of 3 other houses. It had beds to sleep 20 and a common room big enough to feed the same, as long as they didn't mind cramming in a bit. Delia took over the running of the inn as soon as it was built, with her serving food and cork slinging drinks down at the saloon. Most of the hunters were half drunk and half asleep by the time the nightly Curdler hunt came along. Many of them had their eyes closed when their guides stuck a knife into their throats. That suited Ackerman just fine. The last thing he wanted was a fair fight. The boarding house took care of the hunters coming into town. That still left Ackerman with an equally large problem: how to keep the reins on the folks already here. Everyone had been in accordance when survival was on the line, for certain, and most of them understood that there was no uncrossing the line they'd crossed. But there were some who, once their bellies were full and the money from the vigilantes' pockets had transferred to their own, started to think that maybe it was time to move on from Evota Falls. Ackerman couldn't allow this. Here in a tight-knit community, they all kept each other honest. If folks started wandering off back to the world, though, where people didn't understand the necessities life could demand, well, they might say anything then. It would only take one person looking to expunge their guilt to bring a whole heap of new trouble down on Evota Falls. When the first grumbles of discontent started to make their way around town, Ackerman addressed it head-on. He called out the perpetrators, a family by the name of Soulfield, and let it be known that leaving was not an option. That wasn't any more than a bandage over a gut shot, though, of course, but at least it was something. It kept the complainers from just getting on the 12:35 train and riding out of town in full view of everyone. If they'd done that, there'd have been nothing Ackerman could have done to stop them. Too many direct witnesses, with the repercussions to themselves too far away. There would have been an outcry if he'd laid hands on them at noon. The Soulfields weren't certain of that, though. They'd been there when Ackerman had fought the preacher. They'd worked their shifts in the Red Church. They knew they were turning against the town, and they were afraid to face Ackerman directly. They packed up quietly in the night and tried to sneak out of town on the 6:14 morning train. When they stepped onto the train platform in the thin dawn light, Ackerman was waiting for them. He detached himself from the thick wooden support where he'd been waiting and walked toward the huddled trio, silent as a ghost. Kaz Soulfield had never even saw him coming. His eyes were fixed up the track, scanning for the arriving train, when Ackerman slipped up behind him, kicked his legs out from under him, and snapped his neck. His wife Julia screamed, but Ackerman pushed her onto the tracks and shot her in the back as she stumbled. Her blood coated the rails and sank into the sand, but Ackerman didn't worry about it. It would be cleared away and covered over as soon as the train arrived. Their son Luke stared wide-eyed, too shocked to move. Ackerman took the young teen by the shoulders and gently led him away from the platform. "Come on, son, none of this was your fault. Let's get you back home." As they stepped off the platform, Ackerman slashed the boy's neck. The blood fountained outward, falling in a crimson fan on the desert scrub. Ackerman kicked more sand over it, pleased with his work. Not a drop had spilled on the difficult-to-clean boards. He dragged the bodies away, piling them into a small wooden cart he had stashed nearby a week ago. Ackerman had been waiting on the train platform every morning since he'd heard the Soulfields complain. From the moment the words had left their lips, this end had been inevitable. There's a little bit left, but there's an ad starting soon, so I'm going to stop for a second right here. Whew. Curious. And scanning what the last of it will do. Surprised they're not referring yet to the... You're making a little emote? Fetster. I want to see so bad. Okay. I'm waiting for them to mention the times when things didn't go as they wanted it to. What is this? What is that one? The spinning, I can't even track it exactly what it is. Is it a snowman with a weird tree hand? Is it? I can't tell what that is. Anyway, yeah, Fatster, we're all waiting. We want to see your little emote as soon as you get. But I can't get over that little one. What even is that, Death Noah? Okay, anyway. The ad is done, so I should keep going. From the moment the words had left their lips, this end had been inevitable, yes? The church was silent at this time of day. The people of Evota Falls were asleep after the slaughter of the previous night, knowing that like as not they'd be doing it again under this evening's moon. Ackerman hauled his grim trophies aside, barred the door behind him, and set to work. Okay. Quick nods. Yes. Ackerman had been a butcher long before the tire of Mayer had been thrust upon him. The hooks and knives were familiar in his hands. He stripped skin from flesh, drained blood, and separated organs with the ease of long practice. By the time the town was awake, The soul fields were nothing more than more meat on the pile. People noticed their absence, of course. Ackerman listened for the whispers he knew would be coming. He was ready with his answer. "The Curdler took him," he said. He held the questioner's gaze when he said it. Every one of them dropped their eyes. They knew what he meant. They knew they as a town were responsible for this too. They had failed to look after their own. The Curdler had been forced to step in. There had been one or two others since that Ackerman had had to deal with. Hobson had tried to sneak off into the desert, and young Jeffries started using drinking as an excuse for violence. The Curdler came for each of them. By the time anyone noticed their absence, the church door was unbarred and Ackerman's hands were clean. He knew it couldn't last forever. One of the hunters would get away, or one of the townsfolk would finally slip his grasp. In the end, the Curdler came for everyone. But until that day, he was the mayor of Evota Falls, a little desert town that was surviving in spite of all odds. In fact, they were doing so well that he was thinking about setting up an export business for their excess meat. They had more than they knew what to do with these days, and seeing his community thrive when it should have died, that feeling justified every sacrifice. The weirdest emotes I've got is this one. What is that? I can't even tell. Ice scares gravity, divorce. That's interesting. Oh, that's a fun one. Violence, yes. But the end. That's the end of the two halves of this story. The hunger of Evota Falls is up. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to hit random story for the next one and see what pops up. Hoping it's a short one that fits in well with our timing. They all chose violence for sure. Oh yeah, this one's even shorter. It's called Parents Know Best by Nick Botic. Intriguing. Parents know best. Like mother knows best, I guess. All right. We've got at least a half hour left on this stream. And I'm having difficulties getting the mic to give me my feedback in my headphones properly. I'm just fiddling. I think they have different port sizes. I don't know what's going on now. It was fine the whole first 2 hours. Anyway. Okay. Parents know best. .31 out of 10. So something between the last two stories is the review on it. My upbringing was about as traditional as an upbringing gets. My parents were married. I had a younger sister. We lived in a nice suburban neighborhood. Ooh, shut up, story. We have an emote from Fetster. Show us now. How do we get this emote? How can you send it to me? Did you things pop up? Go where I tell you to. Maybe a whisper? Is that where we can get that? Probably. Let me try and do things. You don't think you can find... Oh no. Okay. I'm sure not the person that knows this stuff. I'm gonna see something. Yeah, Discord would be best. I don't have my Discord set up yet, and I've been meaning to. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna take the time to set up my Discourse now. And then later I can make it happen for everybody. Discord. You know what I mean. Anyway. Trickety mic placement. Yeah. Okay. Well, so far we just need to make the Discord. I don't have it at all. Come on, things. Gonna cooperate with me? Okay. Then I will at least write that down, but I want to get it. I'll write it down, but I want to be able to get this sorted. Okay. I'm sorry I'm slow. Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm taking a minute to pull it off. Little cooperate thing. What? No, I'm not a human. But I'm not a robot. What in the fork? Captcha is coming up with new things. This time it's asking me to find the object that's different from the others. Elephants instead of cars? Weird. What the hell? I don't know what to... I don't want to have to do all of this. Great. I'll work on things later. Okay? Just shut up. Let me find a friend. Please. Shush. No, not an android. I'm a dear woman. Shut up, everything. I just want to find the peoples. Okay. How do I find you? Here we go. Thing. Let me... Stop doing the anti-robot things again. I already did this, and it's just elephants again. It is no different. Okay, I have sent a request. We did it, Fetster, we did it. Ha 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 ha. There is. Ha ha ha. There you is. Okay. Money Frog. It's so pretty. Wait. This looks just like the other frog. Like the one online. I will say one thing. It has slightly wrong colors for my frog. I'll just what I did to make the Canva frog mine, I made the red purple, and then the darker green I made like a bluey green. So if you want to change the colors, I can give you a bigger version of my frog. In this, I will give you... Wait, whoa, why am I angry here? Put that away. What happened? Why? Go away with that. Okay. I'm not angry. I am in love. I love the little money frog. Okay. Here's a... No, I'll do this. I will bequeath you my bouncy frog, PNG. And then you will have the colorings as I have done them. Waha! It's not much different. It's 2 color difference, and that's it. Okay. And I put that away, and I take this back, and then I find the stories, because I need those, and then we are all set. It is very easy. Thank you very much, Fetster. It looks adorable. Oh my gosh. Oh, definitely don't do anything right now. No rush. Oh my gosh. Okay. That was so cute. I'm so excited. And I'll have to sort out the Discord next. Okay. Parents know best. My upbringing was about as traditional as an upbringing gets. That's where we were. My parents were married. I had a younger sister. We lived in a nice suburban neighborhood. I had friends at school. All the trappings of a normal, healthy childhood. Oh, I absolutely will, Cage Nightwind. But there was one thing. One rule. One rule that was reiterated daily to my sister and I since the day we were able to understand what it meant. One rule I swore by. Don't look out the windows after dark. Our house was, as I said, in a suburban neighborhood. It sat at the side of a cul-de-sac, the entirety of which was bordered by a small woodland area that separated it from the next neighborhood. It was a perfectly safe area. There wasn't anything immediately apparent that we might see if we looked out the windows at night. I abided by the rule, as did my sister. We didn't know any better. We figured if our mom and dad insisted upon it, there must be a good reason for them in doing so. I didn't know that it wasn't a rule all families recognized until 3rd grade. I'll make sure it happens. I'll be doing whatever version of sharing it with you guys I have to do. Okay. 3rd grade. We'd had a substitute teacher one day just before winter, and that substitute teacher had elected to play a movie, and that movie was The Right Stuff. This movie had so entranced a classmate of mine, Ben, that when he came to school the next day, he brought with him the assembly manual to the telescope he'd convinced his father to buy him the night before. Ben was ecstatic, bragging to all the other kids that had enjoyed the movie about how it was set up in his room and how he was going to look at the flag on the moon and other feats when it got dark out that night. I questioned rather matter-of-factly just how he planned on doing that, considering he couldn't look out his windows, and unsurprisingly, I was met with odd looks and a few awkward, confused laughs from kids who had no idea what I was talking about. Our parents had never told us exactly why we weren't supposed to look out the windows after dark. At the very least, they hadn't told us any real reason beyond just enough to get us to stop asking questions. Their favorite seemed to be, if you love your family, you won't look out the windows after dark. For a time, our windows had been boarded up, but neighbors had complained and the city had threatened us a fine if they weren't taken down. So every night when the sun was setting, my parents would go around and use duct tape to make sure our blinds stayed shut. Not wanting to forever be known as the weird neighbors, they would remove them and open the blinds every morning. When I got home from school the day that Ben had bragged about his telescope, I posed the question to my parents again. Why can't we look out our windows after dark? I got the same answer I always did, and something inside me, some odd mixture of curiosity and embarrassment at what had happened at school, and doubt, made their answer unacceptable for the first time. For the first time, I didn't just blindly believe what they'd been telling me my whole life. That night, sometime after my mom had kissed me on my forehead and told me good night, and my dad had put duct tape along the bottom of the pull-down window shade, I sat up in bed. I felt like I was doing something wrong, but I didn't know why. As such, I peeked my head into the hallway, making sure there was no glow from the TV emanating from my parents' room. When all felt secure, I went to the window in my room, a single window that faced the backyard. I took some deep breaths, mentally preparing myself to see some unholy hellscape that somehow arrived at dusk, and packed up and left by dawn. I went to the side of the window, where I could just barely pull the shade back, and with one final deep breath and blurred images of unimaginable horrors racing through my mind, I shut one eye and looked through. I saw trees. I saw my backyard and past it. I saw the trees that made up the thicket of woods that surrounded all the homes in the cul-de-sac. In the sky, there were a few stars, which up to that point I'd only ever seen in videos, or if I happened to be outside after dark for whatever reason. Being outside after dark wasn't forbidden. The rule was strictly limited to looking out the window, though my parents did their darndest to make sure we were in before the sun set every night. I saw the moon. I sat back for a moment thinking. There was nothing there, just the same things that were there during the day, only now at night. I was both disappointed and relieved, but more than anything, I was confused. I looked back through the space between the shade and the window frame again, and that's when I saw it. Something dropped from a branch of one of the trees and hit on the ground below it, landing parallel to the ground. I squinted my one open eye to see what it was, but once it had hit the ground, it didn't move anymore. I stared at that spot for what seemed like a long time, and just as I looked away, at that very same moment, whatever it was sat up. When I looked back, I saw the silhouette of whatever it was just sitting straight up. Then it stood. Its legs wobbled like a baby deer. It has just started walking towards a house. Its legs wobbled like a baby deer it started walking towards a house. Yeah. Okay. Maybe it was the fact that I was a child, but I remember it looked tall. Upwards of 7 feet. I watched the silhouette saunter towards our house, and distinctly remember my heart beating harder with every step it took. I watched its thin, spindly arms sway, and I remember its head looking all around, from side to side, up and down. It was like it was observing the world for the first time. I wanted to look away, but I was terrified. The closer it got, the more sure-footed it became. Before long, it got close enough to trigger one of the motion sensors my dad kept back there, and the whole backyard was flooded with light. It wore no clothes. Its skin was an oily, dark blue, and it looked like it was sweating profusely. I turned away, unsure what to do. I was torn between this, thing making its way towards our house, and the prospect of telling my parents I'd broken their one rule. I sat in my bed, frozen. Tap, tap. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't looking out the window anymore, but I could feel it just outside. Tap, tap, tap. I closed my eyes, hoping against hope that it was all just a terrible nightmare. Tap, tap. It knocked on my window harder. I don't know what compelled me, but I needed to look. I needed to see it. I peeked back through the space between the shade and the window frame. The overhang of the house was casting a shadow on it, but when I looked through the window, it was face to face with I was face to face with two, and this is in brackets, eyes. But they weren't eyes, really. They were voids, holes completely absent of anything in them, that were somehow darker than the shadow. Yeah, it's a bit excessive to do all this, but it looks like it's for a reason. I jumped back from my window and fell to the floor in tears. I heard the crunching of leaves outside my window, crunching that moved towards my parents' room. I sat there in shock, in fear, in shame, in regret as that thing went to my parents' window. It seemed like an eternity that I sat there, waiting for something, anything to happen. Then I heard my mom shriek. Her screams were accompanied by my dad yelling, "No, no, 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 no." I listened as their footsteps thudded through the room and into the hallway, and it sounded like thunder as they quickly made their way from their room to mine. My door flew open and my dad saw me on the ground crying. He reached down and yanked me up to my feet, grabbing me by my shoulders and shouting in my face, "What did you do? Why did you do that? What the fuck did you do?" Between sobs, my mom put her hand on my dad's shoulder. My dad turned to her and she whispered, "I don't want him to see." My dad took a deep breath and turned back to me. "You need to stay here. I'm not kidding. Do not leave your room." I nodded in agreement. My dad lingered for a moment, and as he finally stood up, I heard him under his breath, "God, no, please." They closed the door behind them, and I listened as they turned down the hallway away from their room towards my sister's. I listened as they opened her door and walked into her room. I listened as they woke her up and walked her out of her room, making their way through the living room and towards the front door of the house. Tap, tap, tap. My blood went cold, and despite knowing that doing so had grave consequences, I felt the need to look back out the window. I felt the need to at least try to understand what was happening. I peeked again and was met. "What is that? I see it. Who did the Timmies?" That was very small, though. I'm going to have to figure out how to change that. "I saw that. What the heck? What the heck? You little shits again." Also, very stark change to be like, oh god. Anyway, okay. Where were we? Little loves from Cage Nightwind. We were at the last tap tap tat. I felt like I needed to at least try to understand what was happening. I peeked again and was met with that same visage, the empty eyes, but something was different this time. There was another void, another part of it that was darker than the shadows that covered it. I'll never know for sure, but at the time I could tell that it was smiling. It wasn't some huge gaping maw, not some clown-like exaggerated smile, but like it was pleased. I remember I got scared all over again, almost immediately, and looked away. I heard my front door open. There was a lull, a moment of total silence that was soon broken by my mom's violent sobbing. I cried just as hard in my room. I heard the crunching of leaves again, this time farther away from my window, up the side of the house towards the front. Oh gosh. I heard my dad's voice pleading. Please, take me. Take both of us, please. You can't do this. I'm sorry, please. I heard no response, just more leaves crunching. This time simultaneously going both towards the front door and away from the house. I heard the front door close and footsteps coming back down the hallway. One set of footsteps continued walking to my parents' room, while one stopped outside my door. You're not the first to do it, I heard my sullen dad's voice say from the other side of the door. Oh no. When you have kids, I hope you make it clearer than we did that they can never, ever look out the windows after dark. It's just something our family can't do. I love you. He walked back to his room and closed the door. I heard him break down alongside my mother. I sat back up and peeked out the window one more time, the curiosity still eating away at me, only now mixed with an unprecedented fear, a feeling of hopelessness, regret, a bottomless despair. I saw its silhouettes walking back toward the trees. I saw its spindly arms and legs, its awkward gait, and I saw it holding my sister's hand, walking her alongside him. I kept my eyes glued to their backs as tears streamed down my face. They disappeared into the shadows of the trees, and that was the last time I saw my sister. It was the last time I looked out a window after dark. Last week I found out my wife is pregnant. I'm going to make it clearer than my parents did. I'm going to tell them exactly what will happen if they disobey that rule, because them knowing the consequences of doing so is more important than keeping them from hearing something that might scare them. They won't look out the windows after dark. The end. Problem with this, though. Okay, so it's your younger sibling that goes if you look. If the younger sibling looked, does the parent or does the older sibling go? Yes, this was properly cryptid story. The first one was vaguely cryptid, devil and witch, you know. And the middle one was just spoopy. Spoopy. My curiosity is, what if you just have the one kid and the one kid looks out the window? Does that kid get taken? What if the parents look out the window? Like, it's very vague. I want to know more. Your parents still didn't tell you much, so you didn't tell us much. What else is there? Tell us. Tell me. I want to know. Anyway, that was a fun one. And now, I'm going to properly say, what the shit, Death Noah? You're just doing all the gifts. Come on. I will enjoy getting snakes. Thank you. Oh yay, okay. Frog, open. Okay. Updated frog. It's beautiful. I love it. Okay. We are taking frog. Give me frog. Yes. Now let me take. Let me take over here. Good. Okay. Now it has. And I'm immediately updating it. Where can I? I'm giving it to these people. You cannot stop me. I want this frog delivered immediately. No, I don't care about that. What? Shut up. Thing. No. Yes. Yes. Ha 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 ha. The sixth Evota frog. It says it's too large. I will have to smaller it. Be smaller. Giant thing. How do I make you smaller? Okay, I have to figure that out later. I don't know. Yeah, it usually needs to be verified. How small? I don't know, and that is why I will bug it again. They say less than 1 megabyte. Resolution between 112 by 112 and 4096 by 4096, and cannot be more than 60 frames. Yeah, that's the specifics. Yes, I will have to smaller it. I'm sorry. No, Fester, it's okay. I was just getting excited because you were so nice to deliver it already. It's all good. Okay. But that was the end of that story, so I should take down that text. We don't need that no more. We're not actively reading it. Yeah. And if I didn't have all the other things actively running, I'm sure that I would figure it out and know that it is very simple too. But right now there's literally so many things all going at the same time that I get flustered. Okay. But okay, I will take this frog eventually and put him up, and I will do Discord things, and I will annoy Violet to help me with those Discord things if I can get her to do that. She usually do help. It's usually not hard. Okay. And then I also am planning to do. Okay. I'm also planning to update all of my about me stuff so that we can have a prettier setup for that. Okay. Will this be after Fetster has smallarized it? Yay, it's happy. I think he will be Money Frog. Raining Money Frog? I'll say Raining Money. Raining Money Frog. Every one of them must be named Frog at the end. It is a requirement. It is beautiful. I like it. Okay. Surprisingly, the frogs that I uploaded last night. Well, that'll do it. There you go. Yeah. Oh yes, I will probably make you all same mods, and if people think they would be up for that too, I can do that. But it's a natural thing. I am sorry. If you didn't notice by the Tim Hortons card, I have been surrounded by Canadians, and I have taken that up. It is only natural. We will have the About Me, we will have the Discord, and I will always be doing the frog makes when I come up with things. Do you know what Tim Hortons is? If you were in on it, you would know for certain. It is very Canadian. It is rarely anywhere else's. So that's it. But yeah. And well, they do that sort of thing. All the sorries. Anyway, you get used to it. Then it's a coffee place. It's donuts, snacks, sandwiches. Yeah. Was a ton herring. They sell some of the coffee. Yes, they do the coffee. They go elsewhere. Snake. Do you want a snake? I can make a snake. Oh wait, snack or snake? I was about to make a snake to go with the frog. I would love to work with you on more frog ideas. The little gentleman I have made, I kind of want him to properly twirl a mustache, but I like him as is as well. I don't know. But not everything needs to be animated. Sometimes they can just be still you know? Anyway. Tom Herring. Oh, Tom. It's Tim Hortons. That is what it is called, Tom Herring. You got the important TH. It's good. I had referred to it when it first came up. I was like, well, the cat's out of the bag. I said Timmy's. And that's the way you refer to it in Canada. That's the way you must refer to it as a Canadian, folks. You say Timmy's. Lots of gentlemanly frog. Okay. See, it is implied that he is twisting his mustache, indubitably. Yes, indubitably. Exactly. I'm glad you get the frog energy. Okay. And then I want to just keep making them as we go along. Maybe frogs in costumes that look like other things. I must make a little witch frog, because like in lots of the fairy tales there's an evil witch, but also so that we can send the frogs Violet's way, so that Vi can have a random little witch frog. Yeah, like her little witch rat. You're off on it. Good. Okay. Yes, this is those plans. I'm going to be updating my schedule for the next week. You know, this is my last stream for a couple of days. Oh no, not the same Timmy down the well. Tim Hortons, different Timmy. But I'm going to do less streams next week because I have to prep before I go up north. But then I will I'll be back after. I won't be gone more than 2 weeks away, and I might still do an attempt at a little update. I don't know what I'll do. Ooh, okay, Fetster. I'll let it be a surprise. It's a funny concept to have Timmy that's stuck in a well be the Tim Hortons. It's fun. I would do all the things that I can, but I have to prep some gifts for the people I'm taking things to, and then I have other work to be doing as well, so I may be busy leading up to trip and just getting back from trip. I will still do at least one stream this coming Sunday to Wednesday, but yeah, I probably won't do 2, and actually I might have to skip the Wednesday. Ooh. Anyway, I will still do some stories, and so yeah, and then I've been uploading everything to YouTube, so you can listen to the ones that you missed if you have missed ones, and then I'll be back and doing more, and hopefully I'll have a whole little plan set for when I do this kind of stream and when I do that kind of stream. The hand cams, the spoopy, the fairy tale, maybe the spicy, I don't know. I'll have fun, and it will all come together, and I'll have Discord by then. I will make sure I get Discord by the time I am leaving, or in the middle of my trip, so that it's set up and operational when I'm back. Yay! Yeah, it's not the same, but I'll try. I'll do what I can. Alright. Well, thank you guys so much, and thanks so much to Death Noah. The freaking gifts, you little shit. You little shit. I mean, wow. And actually I'm going for groceries tomorrow. I was going to go get some of the discounted Valentine's Day chocolates. I'm betting on it. Yes, Fetster. Let's try raid. I don't think I'm old enough, though, actually. My account has to be 30 days, right? And I went looking for everywhere where I could find it, and I don't know where I can find it. Where it actually tells me, oh yeah, you've been active for 40 days or whatever. Yeah. Okay, well then, okay, I'm clicking the raid channel thing. None of the I follow like 4 channels. I don't follow many people. None of them popped up. So who would you recommend I try to raid? Okay. CHIAI. Yeah, now it's popped up. Okay. I'm gonna try. We're gonna try the Chia? I don't know how to pronounce that. We're gonna try to go there. Let's see. No. It said I'm unable to raid them at this time. We'll go again next week. Critterville, USA? Yeah, probably just too young. I am a Twitch baby. Bellsprout, Birdie Boba. Birdie Boba, who's the person you gave me, right? But I think I did follow. I followed them, so when that didn't pop up, I assume that wasn't it. Cams with it. Oh, that's cute. Psyduck, yeah. Violet just rated Bellsprout. Ah. Well then, how about you all go over there? I can't send you, but you know, I tell you, go. Do that. We can all go over there. Okay. Then I'm gonna end the stream and I'm gonna go over there. But I'm probably not gonna stay around too long. Bellsprout. Yee? Let's go. You too, guys. Have a good night. Maybe I'll see you in the chat over there. Oh, Bellsprout. I can't officially do a raid, but why not do a makeshift raid and go over there? Okay. Then, end of stream. Good night.